welcome back to the channel. Today, we're stepping into one of the darkest corners of history, where the people trusted to save lives became the ones who ended them. Doctors are supposed to represent care, knowledge, and safety. But every once in a while, history reminds us of something unsettling. A medical degree doesn't automatically mean a moral compass. In Tisbida, we re-exploring 10 true stories of doctors and medical professionals who crossed the line from healer to killer driven by greed, jealousy, desperation, or something far colder. So, take a deep breath, because these cases prove that sometimes the most terrifying danger doesn't come from the outside world. It comes from someone you thought you could trust. Number 10. The Brighton Murder. Our story begins in Brighton, England. In the summer of the 80s, a man named Dr. Alfred William Warder checked into a hotel with his wife, Helen. Almost immediately, Helen became so ill that her brother insisted she be examined by a local physician. That Dr. Richard Toff was alarmed by what he discovered. Helen's husband had reportedly been treating her pain using a substance known even then for being extremely dangerous in the wrong dose. Dr. Toff changed the prescription, but it was unclear whether Warder followed those instructions. Helen died only days later. What made the situation even more chilling was the reaction afterward. Despite suspicion from both the family and the doctors, Warder didn't resist a post-mortem examination, and what it revealed was devastating. Strong evidence of poisoning. Before the case could ever go to trial, Dr. Warder died by suicide, ending the story before the courts could finish it. And later, whispers grew louder. Helen wasn't his first wife, and possibly not his first victim. Number 9. The Playboy Poisoner. Next, we travel to the United States in the early 1900s. A young woman named Clara Peck married a charming dentist named Arthur Warren Waite. He was handsome, successful, and lived in New York City. To Clara's family, it looked like a dream match. But behind the polished image was a man living recklessly, social events, and a lifestyle far more expensive than his income could support. And there was one thing Clara had that Arthur wanted: her family's fortune. Not long after the wedding, Clara's mother visited the couple and suddenly fell ill, dying. Only days later, then, just weeks later, Clara's father came to visit and died the same way. Arthur Waite might have gotten away with it, if not for one mysterious warning message sent to Clara's brother urging suspicion and demanding an autopsy. An examination revealed poison in the father's body. Arthur Waite was arrested and ultimately admitted the horrifying truth. He married Clara for money, and she was going to be next. Number 8. The Homeopathic Killer. In 19th century Paris, a homeopathic doctor named Edmond de la Pommeraye appeared successful, but appearances can be deceiving. Despite his career, Pommeraye struggled with gambling debts, and like others on this list, he began looking for a shortcut out of trouble. He married into money, but his wife's mother controlled the fortune, and she didn't approve of him. Soon after, the mother visited for dinner, fell violently ill, and died days later. Pommeraye claimed it was cholera. With inheritance money finally within reach, Pommeraye lived comfortably until, once again, he fell into debt. This time, he hatched a plan involving insurance fraud and a mistress. But the scheme collapsed when investigators became involved and a forensic expert proved the mistress had been poisoned. Pommeraye was convicted and executed, becoming one of the most infamous medical murderers in France. Number 7. Murder by mail. Now we head to Providence, Rhode Island. A wealthy woman named Josephine Barnaby trusted her physician de Pleidecourt, Thomas Thatcher Graves, so deeply, in fact, that she gave him control over many of her affairs, including legal power. Graves positioned himself to inherit her estate, but he didn't wait for a natural death. Knowing she enjoyed alcohol, he allegedly sent her a bottle of whiskey laced with poison disguised as a gift from an admirer while she was visiting a friend. Both women drank it. Both became sick and bought the eighth. Graves thought he was untouchable, until a famous detective orchestrated a trap to bring him in. At trial, one key witness testified that Graves had arranged the note to hide his identity. He was convicted, then died by suicide in his cell. Number 6. A deadly love triangle. In late 1950s Los Angeles, Dr. Bernard Finch was a respected surgeon with wealth and status. Then an 18-year-old receptionist named Carol Tregoff arrived at his workplace. The two began an affair. There was only one problem. They were both married. For Carol, divorce wasn't a big obstacle. For Finch, divorce meant losing money, possibly half of everything, and public scandal. Instead of walking away, he chose violence. His wife, Barbara, was shot in the driveway of their home. Finch and Trigov fled separately, then reunited in Las Vegas, where they were arrested. The court battles dragged on to juries deadlocked. But eventually, both Finch and Trigov were convicted and sentenced to life in prison. Years later, both were a case that shocked America, not just because of the crime, but because it looked like something straight out of a movie. Number 5. The Richmond poisoner in Victorian England, Dr. Thomas Smethurst, was accused of poisoning his wife, Isabella. She became ill shortly after they moved to Richmond, London. Another physician suspected poison and sent samples for analysis. The results reportedly showed ours. Smethurst was arrested, but through legal maneuvering, he was allowed to remain close to his wife before she died. Then even more troubling details surfaced. Their relationship may have been bigamous, and she left him everything in a will signed, using a name suggesting she was unmarried. At first, it seemed like a clear conviction, but the case became controversial due to claims of unreliable forensic testing, courtroom bias, and enormous public pressure. Smethurst's conviction was overturned, and he was pardoned, though he still served time for bigamy. To this day, the case remains one of the most debated poison trials of its era. Number 4. Doctor by day, robber by night. In 18th century London, Dr. Levy, while wasn't just a physician, was accused of being the leader of a violent criminal gang. He recruited desperate men with promises of easy money and orchestrated robberies that escalated into murder. Their downfall came after a brutal attack on a farmhouse in Chelsea. The gang tied up residents, looted the home, and attacked 2 sleeping farm workers. One died on the spot. Another escaped, but succumbed to his injuries later. Initially, they got away, but the gang collapsed from the inside when member turned informant in exchange for immunity and reward money. The public was stunned. The leader wasn't some street criminal. He was a highly educated doctor, and several accomplices were convicted and executed. Number 3. Murderer or unlucky. In post-World War I France, Dr. Pierre Bougrat was seen by many as a war hero and respected physician. He treated the poor and lived lavishly, sometimes far beyond his means. In the mid-1920s, Bougrat treated a man named Jacques Rumb, who came in carrying a satchel of money. It was the last time Rumb was seen alive. Months later, after Bougrat was arrested for financial crimes, police searched his office. Behind a hidden cupboard door, they found Rumb's decomposing body. Bougrat claimed Rumb had taken his own life after losing the money elsewhere, and that he panicked and hid the body. Authorities didn't believe him. He was convicted and sent to a penal colony, leaving behind a story that still raises questions. Was it more there, or an unimaginable cover-up by a man trying to save himself? Number 2. The Irish Bluebeard in Belfast. Dr. Robert George Clements was a respected surgeon, successful, admired, and powerful. But after his wife died suddenly in the late 1940s, people began asking questions. Because she wasn't his first wife to die, she was reportedly his fourth. The pattern felt impossible to ignore. Each wife left him money. Each was cremated quickly, and he had influence over the medical paperwork that documented their deaths. Eventually, investigators intervened and delayed cremation. A new examination was performed. This time, the cause was ruled poisoning. Clements never stood trial. He was later found dead, and authorities concluded it was suicide. His final note claimed he could no longer endure the accusations, but the suspicion never vanished. Number 1. The Lambeth Poisoner. At number 1, we meet one of the most infamous medical criminals in history, Dr. Thomas Neil Creme. Creme's name still appears in historical discussions connected to Jack the Ripper, mostly due to rumors, coincidences, and his own alleged final words. But even without those theories, his confirmed crimes were horrifying enough. He moved across Canada, the United States, and England, repeatedly leaving tragedy behind him. Creme exploited vulnerable people and used poison as a weapon, often attempting to frame others through letters and accusations. Even more disturbing, he sometimes inserted himself into investigations, trying to manipulate the narrative, like he was smarter than everyone around him. In the end, he was caught and executed in London. And while the full truth of every suspected case may never be known, history remembers him as one of the clearest examples of a killer hiding behind a medical title. Outro Facebook Fringi closing. So those were 10 historical doctors who traded healing for harm stories that still unsettle us because they twist something we retaught to trust. These cases remind us that evil doesn't always look like a villain in the shadows. Sometimes it wears a respectable coat. Sometimes it speaks calmly. And sometimes it has credentials on the wall. If you enjoyed this deep dive into history's darkest medical figures, hit like, follow the page, and share this video with someone who loves true crime and historical mysteries. And, as always, stay curious, stay aware, and I'll see you in the next one.